welcome to Over the Glass. We are your friendly neighborhood Sharks fans. I am your host, Jay.
I'm Nessa. Before we get started, I want to wish everyone a happy Sharks Week for all those who celebrate.
Is it Shark Week?
Yeah, it is. It starts today.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. So we wanted to take a moment. We're concluding our first week of launching Over the Glass. It's something that, we've never quite done before, and we were overwhelmed by the positivity of us starting the podcast. We had over 100 follows on our social media platforms and that also incorporates YouTube, and then any follows on the podcast platforms that we launched Over the Glass on. And then we had over 140 plays across all those networks. So
thanks so much.
We want to just take this time, thank everybody. At the end of the day, we're here for anyone who wants to listen, and we're very grateful that there are folks who have and are excited about what we've got going on. So we're only going to try moving in that direction and hopefully giving everybody content that they'll find interesting. And then we also wanted to shout out to the 313 podcast. They cover the Red Wings. They had, we met them when we launched. I checked them out a little bit ago. They also launched just a little bit, maybe like a week or so before us, and they wanted to just let us know how excited they were that, we were joining the podcast crew, that they also have a non-binary person on their at their helm. So anybody who's looking for another podcast that's got queer representation, if you follow the Red Wings or you've got fellow hockey fans who just want to listen to hockey in general, or specifically the Red Wings, I would give them a follow. I'd give them a listen, and just help support hockey in general, queer people in hockey. So
yeah, they've been very welcoming to us. It's been nice because we're brand new. We're just doing this as we go. I'm figuring it out as we go. So any positive feedback and stuff has been very, very much appreciated.
So now we're gonna move on to, we wanted to acknowledge what's been going on for a little bit now, as information came out about
Hockey Canada. There's some trials coming up, and we were initially going to talk about it, but it just didn't feel right to not acknowledge it. It's something really serious that happens within hockey culture and a bunch of different leagues, but it's just barely coming into light right now. We're reading an article written by Brock McGillis, and he kind of points out like different ways that the culture can change for the better, kind of just educate the kids more that are coming into the leagues, the junior leagues, to be more aware about anything they say, specifically like homophobia, racism, how that can impact a person, training them in a way, training them in a way where they're not kind of just brushing off sexual harassment, I guess, like these kids aren't taking it seriously, and it is a serious, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a serious issue going on.
Yeah, I was reading a bit from the article that Brock had written, and a lot of things that stuck out to me is more or less what he has advocated for hockey in general with LGBTQ, IA plus, and eradicating the hockey culture that discriminates against that community, that within the language, or just like with sexual assault, we're not taking it seriously, and people are quick to just brush it under the rug, or if we just have them do certain amount of training and then we decide, yep, that's good enough, so moving on. But as he's mentioned time and time again, it's embedded in the culture. I mean, these kids, especially in Canada, where hockey is, that's life, and that's something that many kids strive for, and they get into it very early. And just the way that the culture is right now, you hang out with your teammates, you hang out within hockey spaces, and eventually that's kind of all you know. And if they aren't doing better with, as far as educating, humanizing the issues, as we get older, we kind of get stuck in our ways. But as kids, we're curious. We look to our peers, to our mentors for what's right and wrong. And if your mentors are telling you it's fine, then why else would you question that you should do better, that something isn't right? And also, especially in hockey, if you do step out of the norm, it's frowned upon. So even if kids realize that it's wrong, they probably don't want to stick out like that, so they just go along with it. And then as they get older, and then they, let's say they get into professional leagues, it just continues. It continues to snowball, and by that point, it's already, it kind of feels a little too late.
Yeah, plus accountability just doesn't really exist, which is also really, really frustrating to watch from the outside. You've heard of NHLers being accused of sexual harassment or sexual assault, and nothing comes of it. They have enough money to make it go away. And this isn't like, it's obviously it's not fair, but it's really, really aggravating to see. So I feel like there just needs to be more done to be able to hold people and kids accountable. You had mentioned the kid, the prospect who the Canadians had drafted last year. I forget.
Logan Malone. I don't recall how to say his last name, but
where he had been caught doing whatever it is that he did. He had said, I don't want to be drafted, only because of the backlash he was getting. And then the Canadians went ahead and drafted him anyway without him actually suffering the consequences of his actions,
And they've been sharing, look at all the training he's done, and we're acknowledging that this is great progress. I mean, I don't really think that an organization that's embedded in the culture, not just the Canadians, I'm talking about hockey in general, it's not something for them to say that he's crossed his T's and dotted his I's and he's good to go, folks. Nothing more to see here. I don't think that is something that they get to decide. Be done.
Yeah, and I mean, it's great that if he actually is doing some decent training, for him to improve upon it. But I also feel that he should have had the chance or to do that work first. Like, suffer the consequences, go through what you need to do to to work up to a spot where people feel that you've done enough work to put yourself back into the picture of being drafted to the NHL or something. But even still, it feels kind of wrong because it's a crime. You know, you literally ruined someone's life. So I don't know what the process or what redeeming yourself should look like. Like, he should have the opportunity to do something to work on himself, but it's also like, what about the victim?
So, yeah, we just wanted to make sure that we acknowledge that that was something that's going on, and it's an ongoing situation that is, I mean, I hope at the end of the day that it's follows the necessary avenues for justice, and we don't just sweep it under the rug. We don't just, say, oh, but they're just kids. Like, yes, they are, but if we don't do anything beyond just addressing it, it's going to continue to happen, just like anything else going on in the world right now. And this is part of hockey. It isn't political. It isn't something that we should just, not talk about, because it is part of life. So, yeah, I'm not sure how to properly segue from something like that, but we did want to move on to the next segment where we're going to talk about what's going on with the Sharks right now. It's been a fairly quiet week, in comparison to when free agency opened up, and it seemed like everybody, the gates opened, and it was like a convention where they, were gonna, everyone's trying to rush to the booths so that they can get, the exclusives and stuff, and then it just kind of died out.
Yeah.
Um,
with the exception of the news of the head coach that hasn't officially been announced, but we all know what's going on.
Right. So outside of the Sharks releasing that they're going to announce uh, the head coach and not specifying who that is, it's been reported on multiple reliable platforms that it is David Quinn, who had a 3-year contract prior to this with the New York Rangers, and the Rangers were going through their rebuild. They had a number of first round picks that I'd say that was part of the biggest criticism that Sharks fans had with the announcement of David Quinn, that he's got a rather short leash with his young guys. And of course, we've got a number of young guys with William Eklund and potentially Thomas Portillo coming in, probably making the roster. We'll see during development camp, training camp. We did a quick poll the other day to kind of get a feel of what Sharks fans were feeling, and it was mostly down the middle. Majority just weren't really sure how to feel about it, which is kind of where I'm at. Initially, it was very underwhelming, especially because prior to Mike Greer getting the GM position, that was already being talked about as, oh, he's probably going to hire David Quinn because they're both, from Boston, or they played in Boston. Yeah, so it's no surprise. So it was a bit underwhelming, and then kind of as that rolls off, then you start thinking, okay, I still want to be positive about this upcoming season, so
maybe this is a good thing.
So, I mean, yes, it's concerning that, a lot of it kind of feels like, even though we let Bob Bugner go, a lot of stuff with David Quinn kind of seems the same. Criticisms from last season. Our young guys were being short leashed as well. There were, I think, a number of times Jonathan Dolan was benched, and the whole thing of, sending a message, blah, 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 but then you don't do it for the other guys. And I don't know. A lot of last season, I think the negatives stuck out more because we were so frustrated with the season. We couldn't get a win most days. It doesn't feel too great to get somebody who kind of seems to emulate a lot of things that we didn't like with Booger last season, but I don't want to give him the benefit of doubt that, he didn't get the year that Shesterkin got the Vezina, but at the end of the day, we've got him. Just like Mike Greer, we gotta give him a chance.
All in on Team Tank. No, I don't. I still don't know how I feel about it, because, yeah, he just seems like another Bob Bugner, right? He is coming in as a second. Like, this is only his second head coaching job, just like Bugner coming to the Sharks was. Even though Bugner was hired as assistant and then hired as a interim after DeBoer was fired. The numbers, the win record for Quinn is better than Bugner's, even though he didn't make the playoffs with the Rangers. But nothing about anything I've heard or read so far is exciting me. So I just feel meh. I feel one big meh about the hiring.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it'd be great if we got somebody who has a proven record with winning and has had several more years in the head coaching position, especially at the NHL level. It would be nice. Are we there as far as our roster is concerned?
No.
Not the way it looks right now, not with all of the changes that are being made. It's really hard to say. Moving Burns, now our defense. Hopefully Erik Karlsson has a much better season. Hopefully Vlasic has a resurgence.
He was playing pretty well with Merkley at the end of last season, right? I feel like
I can't really recall, to be honest.
I feel like he was
whole season's a blur.
I think.
Okay.
Don't quote me on it. Like, but I'm pretty sure he started playing a little bit better once he was paired up with Merkley. Was it Merkley? Pretty sure. Anyways, so one of the things I did find interesting about the Quinn hiring that I've read so far is that they think that he is being brought in to develop a lot of the rookies, the same way that he was brought in to develop the Rangers rookies.
I mean, it makes sense. Immediately when it was announced that we were going to get him as head coach, my first thought was, well, the Rangers, they were in a rebuild. So that's not surprising, on top of it was already speculated that he was likely going to be a hire, or at least at the top of Mike Greer's list. I think just the fact that he had the short leash on a bunch of the young Rangers players, specifically Capo Kako. I was about to say our goaltender. I was like, no.
Wrong.
It's not him. Yeah, so we're in our version of a rebuild, so I can see why that's appealing to hire someone who was hired previously to develop young guys, even though it seems he is not too fond of them. I tried my best to not read too much fan reaction to it. We're, at least I'm trying to kind of try to come in with the open mind. It's hard, but
It is. But one point that was made, I think, in Shang's article was that Adam Fox didn't he win the Norris under.
right. Mm-hmm.
So I'm not like super angry about the hiring. Like I said, like there were some rookies that did decently under his coaching. So it just, I guess we'll just have to wait
So
and see.
one of the other things that he also mentioned was that Quinn is his style of coaching is is focused on defensive play.
Yeah, which
So it
we,
makes
we need
sense
right
that
now.
I mean I can't recall how well the Rangers were scoring during his tenure. Um, as far as we're concerned with the Sharks, if they do any more scoring than they did last season, then that's like an improvement. It would be great to be a little better defensively. I mean, we were okay last season. It would be great to lock that down a bit more. Um, so yeah, when you think to Adam Fox and even Keandre Miller, one of their young defensemen on the Rangers, it makes sense that he, because that's his background. That's what he focuses on. Just another thing to add to the list of
Wait and see.
it's, yeah, wait and see. It's Greer era. Um, it's really hard to tell what it's gonna look like. We've got to try our best to stay positive going into the season because it's exhausting to be disappointed in your team.
It really is. I think okay. So before I lost my train of thought, I saw somewhere someone mention that if we are, I guess we're not really planning on sucking, but if it does pan out that way with all these signings that he just did this offseason, which are like 1 to 2 years, three, there's like 1 4-year contract, I think. By the time most of those are up, we're hoping to have had decent draft picks in the draft, and to have most of our prospects develop to a point where that maybe we can be competitive again, like Eklund, Bordelot, and Ko, and Gustian, and Lund. Well, I don't know if Lund will make it to the team by then, but all of these prospects should be able to make the team by then and have a decent amount of experience to have us back to maybe playoff contention. So
Yeah, I do like all of the short contracts that are being made right now. It definitely uh, is good for the future outlook if things kind of continue to go south. That we're not delusional that we're just we've just stumbled a couple of seasons and we'll hop right back into it and it's fine. It gives us that flexibility that if this is not working out, well, we can continue to, I guess, do similar to what we've been doing this off season, where we move a large chunk of people and bring in, fresh new bodies. It would be great to have more youth to bring up, so that's good that the draft picks we're starting to kind of, we're not in a position anymore where we're selling those off to um, to get veteran experience for a long cup run. It's that's not in our stars right now. So
yeah, learn from the Erik Karlsson trade.
who did they get for the first round?
So because we had given up the 2020 first round pick for Erik Karlsson in that trade, the Ottawa Senators ended up drafting Stutzla.
Oh, the German.
Yes.
Okay, because I was like, how do you spell that?
It's
I was
with
like
a
drawing
U
a blank.
and the two dots over
Yeah,
the U.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Last season, my fantasy league, I was keeping an eye on that person. I think at some point someone dropped him, and I think we were getting towards the last couple of months of the season. It was my first time playing fantasy, and so I think at that point I was starting to get the hang of it. But I was like juggling a bunch of guys, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I should pick him up. I don't know anything, and I think he got grabbed off of waivers. It wouldn't have made a difference for me, but he came on my radar because I was seeing how good he was, and then and then I spent a lot of time considering it while he was like on waivers being dropped. So that's how I know about that guy. I didn't realize that we got that the Senators got him off of our draft pick.
Anyways, have you been on social media lately and seen the pictures of Nico Sturm with the Stanley Cup?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they got him from, I'm gonna get it wrong. Did they get him from the Minnesota Wild?
No. I think he was a free agent.
No, I
You
mean
mean the Avalanche?
I think the Avs got him from another team.
From the Wild, yes.
Yes.
So
Okay.
he already has chemistry with Kakinen.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was just really like, this is the first time that I've seen a San Jose Shark, because he is currently signed as a Shark, with the Stanley Cup.
Jonesy got a Stanley Cup. Did you not see that photo of him in his Kings?
But he was not a San Jose Shark at the time. He was not signed with the Sharks when he had the cup, was he?
Jones got the cup this season before we got him.
Right.
Similar to what Nico Strum is. He got the cup.
But did he have his day with the cup while he was signed as a Shark?
You're nitpicking.
No, I'm not nitpicking.
You're nitpicking. It's the same thing.
I wasn't there for that, so I'm just asking.
Okay. Oh, I forgot. You started following the season when he was already with the Shark, and we were in the Stanley Cup. Okay.
Yeah.
I can't remember when that photo came out, but I remember having a bunch of feels. I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this, because he's like in his King's gear and whatever, and I'm like, oh. So, anyways, so yeah, not too much going on.
Yeah.
I guess that's kind of nice that we get to recover from the frenzy.
Yeah.
And we're settling in a bit now, and at least we have a head coach, and the press conference is going to happen on Tuesday, so I'd imagine a lot of folks are going to tune in for that.
Imagine it's a different person because they haven't officially announced it's Quinn. They're like, oh, it's someone else. I was actually really more intrigued about the one that starts with a W, Orofsky or something like that. He is or was the head coach for the Chicago Wolves. Because he had just came off of.
I know who you're talking about. I don't remember how to say his last name.
Worofsky, I don't know. I'd have to look at how it's spelled. But I think that's the one name that actually kind of excited me off of the list. And then they went ahead and was like, nope, it's David Quinn. Like, okay, I guess.
I'd say if anything, it would just be nice because we'd be on a high that, oh, he won the Calder, that's cool, and we'd be excited about it. If he would have been any better than David Quinn, I think it's just a matter of what we're focusing on.
The two coaches that were just hired, or I guess assistant coaches for the Barracuda, though, that seems promising to develop the young guys. Because the dude, there was one, oh God, I forgot their names too. I'm so unprepared for this episode. The one who was coach of the Seattle Thunderbirds, because he had just developed Krasinski, which I'm pretty sure the Sharks were trying to acquire during the draft before the Blackhawks came in and swooped them. But I don't know, man, that's kind of exciting.
In preparation for the queer representation pop culture segment for today, I'm wearing a Star Trek shirt that says "Space: The Final Frontier," which is obviously one of the most iconic messages, lines that relate to the Star Trek franchise. And I wanted to talk about it today because I was getting up to date with Discovery this past week. And for anyone who doesn't know, that's one of the three new Star Trek series that is streaming on CBS.
I am not a Trekkie or whatever these fans are called, so you're going to have to lead the charge on this.
Yes, they're most infamously referred to as Trekkies or Trekkers.
Trekkers?
I say Trekkies.
Trekkies is cuter.
I say Trekkies. I won't judge people if they say Trekkers. It's fine. Inclusion, people. Going back to kind of what inspired us to chat about that today is the episode that I was watching on Strange New Worlds. You've got this trans actor who does also play a queer character on the show. Their pronouns are they, them, the character that they're portraying. And there's a scene where it comes shortly after Spock needs to make a decision on the bridge, which is the main area of operations on the ship. Captain Pike asks him to make a decision, but Spock, being torn between being human and being Vulcan, he's been molded to be more Vulcan because he grew up on the planet Vulcan, and they're all about being logical and not going with your gut because that's illogical, and he's forced to make a decision where he doesn't have that information, but they need to make a quick decision or the safety of the crew is going to be at risk. So he makes a decision, and then the scene that comes after that is where Dr. Aspen goes to his quarters and initiates a conversation implying that Spock may need to chat about something, and Spock doesn't understand what they mean, and they bring up the situation on the bridge, how he was asked to make that decision, and he says, that doesn't make any sense to me to go with my gut, that's very illogical. Well, you're also half human, and he says, oh, well, that's just genetics. I was born and raised on Vulcan, and that's also geography, so you're kind of talking about this nature and nurture.
Why choose one or the other when you can be both, basically, or neither?
It's not to say at all that, oh yeah, Spock is a queer character or anything like that. No, it's not to say that, but it's to kind of show that these struggles happen within the queer community as well, specifically folks who identify as non-binary and trans, and it's great that a trans actor delivered that message or that moment, and the character within the episode is also trans themselves.
I think that's cool because as someone who actually fits in those boxes, I don't think I would have. No. Okay, it's not an insult.
No, I'm not taking it that as all, but it is. It does. There's moments where it is hard because it.
I just say boxes because that's the term that they were using in the clip, right? Everyone tries to fit things into boxes, right? As someone who does fit into a box, I don't know if I would have watched that episode with the same viewpoint as you. I do know I've had this sort of a similar conversation with my older sibling who is also non-binary. They also have they them pronouns, and something they mentioned was like, I don't want to identify as well, first of all, they don't feel as male or female, right? but they also didn't want to. See, now I lost my words. Kind of just fit into whatever society expects of them, right? That's one of the reasons that they kind of decided to go and use the they them pronouns, I guess. I'm not really sure how to phrase that better. Which I thought was really interesting because it's not something I think about, because, you know, for me, I feel like female. Like, I feel she, her describes me. I've had coworkers in the past who found out that I was in a same-sex relationship refer to me with masculine pronouns before in Spanish, and I was like, I don't like it. Like, it didn't feel right to me, right? I was like, I don't like this, and it actually kind of made me a little upset. Like, why aren't you using the correct pronouns? Which, I don't know. It's I guess trying to not part of the societal norms. That's it.
Not to exclude anybody, but folks who are non-binary and are trans, because it's just like, oh, thank God, because it is so hard to articulate sometimes how I feel, and it's also not because folks don't empathize, but it is hard when you can tell they are trying, but they just can't, and you're just like, oh geez, like, I really just like want to find the right word so you understand exactly how I feel, and it's never going to happen. And it's like kind of coming around to the reality that, yeah, it isn't gonna happen. But it's great to have these stories. It got to me. It was making me like really emotional, and I like sent it to a bunch of people. I'm like, you need to see this. This is me. Like, it's me and whatever. And, you know, just having folks being like, that's cool, blah, 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 and whatever. And it's like just the acknowledgement that, you know, they realized it was an important thing.
And this is why we say representation matters.
Right. So there's also tons of queer representation within Star Trek Discovery. I'm really trying to plug a bunch of Star Trek because everyone should watch it, especially if you're queer. You're missing out? There's so much great representation in Star Trek,
and it looks great. It really does. There's something about it that is just not drawing my interest, and I can't pinpoint it. I can't. See,
I think you're more into fantasy and animation, and I'm more into sci-fi.
I don't know. Well, maybe, but I mean, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. Is that fantasy?
See, that's more at least to me, that's more fantasy.
Because it doesn't have the queer representation undertones?
No, for me, Star Wars feels more fantasy. It's fantasy sci-fi, whereas Star Trek feels like it's, I mean, obviously all of them are fiction. You know, I'm not saying like Star Trek's real, guys.
They're real. Spock is real.
I wish he was. If it were real, I'd be in Starfleet right now. You know that, but you know, not to dive into a whole different. I feel like Star Trek happens majority of the time on a spaceship, and then they go to the different planets. Versus, I feel like Star Wars, it's more
happens on different planets and barely
it's on different planets, and every now and then you get onto a Millennium Falcon, or you get onto, you know, the Death Star, stuff like that. It's still sci-fi, but I feel like if you are not really into like the spaceship, you know, exploration type of thing, like that, I feel like that's kind of hard to get into, even despite all this great stuff that's happening in queer representation. Like, you've kind of got to need to be really interested in that sort of, and also it's episodic, so you kind of need to be really interested in all that, versus Star Wars is, yeah, they've got series and stuff like that, so it's not just the movies with, you know, the
Am I detecting some hate? Are you hating on Star Wars?
No, I'm just saying I'm trying to dissect why folks might be geared more towards Star Trek. It's the flow of, like, Star Trek has movies as well, but I feel like majority of its franchise is based in TV series and episodic shows versus Star Wars.
Gotcha.
It's more, you've got the 2 hours of the movie and it's just like fighting, fantasy on planets type thing. It's a different flow.
Mm-hmm.
And Star Trek is a little more slow paced until you get to like the end of the series, and then it's like, oh, cliffhanger and blah blah blah. So it's a bit slower. So if you're not invested in the starship space travel, you're probably going to be a little bored. Whereas I'm like, yes, give me more of that. Anyway, so getting back to Discovery, so there's tons of queer representation within Discovery. You've got Anthony Rapp, who Nessa realized last night is in Rent, and
that's the dude from
she
Rent.
said, "Hey, that guy looks like the dude from Rent." That's because he is. No way. So he's in the show. He plays Commander Paul Stamets, who is a male human astromycologist and Star Trek officer. And to tell you what the heck I just said, astromycologist is the study of alien fungi. So he's,
very
this
interesting.
big nerd who's sci-fi. Sci-fi. He's a science officer on board Discovery, and that's his specialty. And he is married to Wilson Cruz's character, Commander Hugh Colbert, who is a human Starfleet officer who is a doctor and a counselor on Discovery.
And they do make a cute couple from the clip you sent me.
They're so adorable. I love them. I love them. Going into the quote, I think that that Wilson Cruz says, I think that is absolutely true, that we get to be the heroes of our own story. We see the LGBTQ plus people as part of the solution. So he says, we did a pretty good job of burying your gays trope. I think we put a nice big marker on it and it's gone. Don't do that anymore. I am really proud of that. I love how detailed it was and how we used to tell the story about resilience and how this person can rebuild from the trauma by reaching out. And that love is what saves you. And then finally, I wanted to mention there are two other characters who are queer in the show and then also played by queer actors. You have Blue Del Barrio, who plays Adira, who is also non-binary in real life and then also plays a non-binary character. And then you have Ian Alexander, who is trans, goes by he, him, or they, them pronouns, and plays Gray Tall, who is a Trill in the show. Backstory on Trills: they're from the planet Trill. They're half humanoid, half symbiote. What happens with Gray is that he merges with the symbiote. There is an accident that causes him to be killed early on, and him and Adira are in a relationship, and of course they want to do something to save him, or whatever, and they agree to merge with the symbiote. Adira started hearing and seeing Gray, which is unusual. And so there's instances throughout Discovery where they're talking to Gray, but of course no one can see him, knows what Adira is doing. Eventually it starts to unfold, and Dr. Culber decided, I want to help bring Gray back. And towards the end of season 3, there's a quote that Culver, when he finally discovers how to do that, he tells Gray, you will truly be seen," which is pretty great representation for trans and non-binary people, because that's essentially what we're after. We just want people to acknowledge that we're here and just treat us like everybody else, and it's great to see within Star Trek.
Yes, and also use the correct pronouns.
Mm-hmm. It's the least you can do. Everyone uses pronouns, so folks who are saying, oh, here's this person, there's the pronoun police, or I don't use pronouns. Actually, yes, you do.
Oh, you have pronouns in your bio. I can't talk to you.
Oh, right.
I don't use pronouns. You talking about symbiotes just reminds me of Venom. The representation is amazing, because you mentioned like 2 or 3 trans actors that are within the shows, different shows. 2, maybe 3. Pretty sure I heard at least 2.
The 2 in Discovery, the one in Strange New Worlds. That is all that we know, at least from my knowledge so far.
Right.
And then there's
all of these queer peoples, but specifically trans, because I don't feel it's not really seen too much within like the industry, too many trans folk as actors, because just from like the top of my head I can think of Laverne Cox from Orange is the New Black. Then there is Hunter, I forget their last name, but the girl from Euphoria who plays opposite of Zendaya.
I haven't seen that show.
That's pretty cool.
I need to plug Theo Germain. He is amazing. And then there's also... Oh, and then we're forgetting Elliot Page, because duh.
Oh, yes, because they just... Okay, my bad. Elliot Page. That's 3 outside of Star Trek.
And then there's Elliot Fletcher, who's been in a number of shows. Shameless, The Fosters. I mean, obviously we didn't look into this beforehand, but those are a couple that come to mind because I've been watching their stuff. And
so thank you again for listening. We have our first interview set up that's going to happen in a couple of weeks. We're really excited about. We are going to try to highlight a lot more queer folk, whether it be artists, friends that we have, people sharing their lived experiences being queer. But yeah, do you have anything to say?
Live long and prosper.
Of course.
All right, everyone. Thanks so much for listening to us, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks, guys. Bye.